Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We, in fact, are coming to you from the Agnes Varis NJEDA studio in Newark, New Jersey. I'm pleased to welcome for the first time with us Tim Sullivan, Chief Executive Officer of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, otherwise known as the New Jersey EDA. Good to see you, Tim.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
How would you describe the EDA?
EDA is a really important part of the state's efforts to diversify and grow the economy. And we have a broad set of tools that under Governor Murphy's leadership we're looking forward to deploying to strengthen and grow and diversify the economy, make it stronger and fairer New Jersey.
Let's break this down a little bit. New governor comes in, Governor Murphy, he or she.
Right.
Does he or she appoint the head of the EDA, and then there's a vote by the board?
Makes a recommendation to the board, and then the board takes that recommendation up, which I was fortunate to get that recommendation and vote back in February.
Describe your background.
Grew up in Bergen County, so born and raised in New Jersey.
Bergen Catholic.
Bergen Catholic, Deus Vult. There we go, go Crusaders. And
Essex Catholic, Eagles. My high school doesn't even exist anymore, but that's another story.
That's fine.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Bergen County.
Bergen County. Went to school down in Washington and worked in New York City for a bunch of years. Worked for Mayor Bloomberg when he was the mayor. Did economic development policy for Mayor Bloomberg and his deputy mayor, Bob Steele. Then spent the last 4.5 years or so up in Connecticut working for Governor Dan Malloy, and was really thrilled to get the call from Governor Murphy to come home and work for the home state.
Let's break this down a little bit. The EDA provides, can we say, loans to get projects going that otherwise might not get going?
That's one of the things we do, sure. So it provides loans and tax credits.
By the way, excuse me, we're talking to Tim Sullivan at the EDA. The website is up right now. Check out more information. I'm sorry, Tim.
Of course. We do a bunch of, the EDA has a whole bunch of tools. One of them is we can provide loans to small businesses that might otherwise have difficulty accessing the traditional banking markets. We can provide tax credits to help incentivize or encourage companies to either stay or, more importantly, come to New Jersey and grow here. We can also help provide gap financing,
What does that mean?
If a project is, as you described it, if a project doesn't quite make sense on its own, but there's important public policy goals, for example, affordable housing. We're working on a project just around the corner in Newark where there's two housing developments being brought out of the ground that have a portion of affordable housing in them, and we're helping to provide some financing to bridge that gap to help make the economics make sense for the development team.
Tim, excuse me, as we're talking about businesses in the state, so many legislators come here and others from both sides of the aisle who talk about the challenges that businesses face. They want to stay in New Jersey. They love the state. But the cost of doing business in the state is very challenging. How hard is it, in fact, to keep businesses that employ thousands and thousands of people in this state? Is it hard?
Well, I'd say New Jersey has definitely a set of challenges and a set of opportunities that are not dissimilar from a lot of other northeastern states, and I've had the privilege of working in other places. And the challenges.
So you have context.
I do have some context, yeah, from Connecticut and New York City, which is sort of its own animal, but certainly some context. Real challenges and real opportunities. I think we think about the cost of doing business. There's both financial costs and non-financial costs. I think one of the biggest things that we hear constantly from businesses that are either thinking about coming to New Jersey or making decisions about whether they should stay: infrastructure, transportation, traffic. Those kinds of considerations.
Quality of life issues.
Quality of life that comes right along with it. So, maintaining our strong position with regard to quality of life and education and the vitality of our cities and towns is really important. So is making investments in higher education, investments in transportation, and particularly in mass transit. If folks can't get to and from work, they'll figure out a way where they can be somewhere where they can get to and from work. And so that's a big challenge. One of the reasons that the governor's been so out front and so vocal in the need to invest in New Jersey transit. They need to invest in things like the Gateway Project
Yeah, we're talking about United States Senator. Sorry for interrupting. United States Senator Cory Booker was with us, sitting where Tim is right now. He was there yesterday. The Gateway Tunnel Project is huge. We talked about that from a federal perspective. Why is it an economic development issue from your perspective?
Well, for one thing, the ability to get folks in and out of into and out of Penn Station from New Jersey is critically important. Hundreds of thousands of people from New Jersey work in the city every day, and if they can't get there, they may make different decisions about where to live. Companies may begin to make different decisions about where to locate. And so, New Jersey has always benefited from having both a dense and highly educated population, but also a great location with great connectivity. Connectivity is the name of the game in the 21st century economy. That's both an infrastructure comment, but also with regard to things like, internet and wireless capability and broadband and all those things. And so, Gateway is critical, and the ability, the last time that the new rail tunnels drilled under the Hudson was, I think, 1910 or 1911, something like that. The economy is tripled in size.
Aging infrastructure.
Aging infrastructure. It's a problem not just the gateway. It's a problem all along the rail system. It's a problem for bridges and bridges and roads all throughout the state. That's a really important factor that I think a lot of people overlook when they're thinking about the overall competitiveness factor for New Jersey's economy.
Sorry for interrupting, Tim. Steve Adubato here talking with Tim Sullivan, the head of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. You see there, we'll put up their website and check out what they're doing there. So there have been conversations, questions, some say controversy. How much should the EDA do? How much should they help a business come to the state, stay in the state, keep them from leaving, in terms of tax incentives, et cetera? And what does that company owe the state of New Jersey? I mean, so I can break this down in simple terms. Does the company have to commit to hiring a certain number of people, and those people be from New Jersey? Like the ROI on this. Am I oversimplifying it?
No, you've got it basically exactly right. Yeah, it's a very, very complicated, it's a very, very important public policy set of questions, because the notion of sort of incentivizing or inducing folks to do things that they either would or wouldn't otherwise do is sort of an impossible question to answer precisely.
Sure.
And so, one of the things, certainly, companies, if they receive a tax credit, if they're getting a public investment in the form of a tax credit, we ask them to certainly commit to a certain number of jobs. They usually come to us and say what their plans are. They have to commit to doing those things. And the amount of credit they get, the program that exists now, which sunsets about a year from now, it sunsets in June of 2019. It ends unless the legislature extends it. It's both performance-based, and it's based on the number of jobs you pledge to create. So you get a certain amount of tax credit for a certain number of jobs, with some bonuses built in if you're in a city, if they're high-paying jobs, if they're in targeted industries like life sciences. And if you don't create those jobs, you don't get the tax credit.
There are penalties.
You never get it.
You don't get it. That's a penalty.
That's a penalty. That's right. And so and so companies have to perform. And so we'll see over the next. There was a large number of tax credit projects that were initiated in the last 4 or 5 years. Some of those are going to come to fruition and come to the finish line in the next couple of years, and we'll see if one of those companies are able to deliver on the commitments they made, if they'll get the credits they earned.
By the way, Tim, can people go on the website and find out what those projects are?
Absolutely. There's a detailed list on our website.
Make sure you go on the website. How about this one? We lose. I had this conversation with Larry Downs over at New Jersey Resources, happens to be the chair, if I'm not mistaken, of the EDA, a good friend of ours. And Larry was talking about the fact, and this is relevant for a lot of people, we are losing a lot of New Jersey folks who go to school here, college here, and then leave. Yep. And then they spend their life somewhere else. Taxes go to another, the economic impact. The brain drain, what do we do? Is that an EDA issue?
It's an everyone issue. And so as Governor Murphy likes to think about these things as sort of a whole of government response. So EDA certainly has a role to play in it. The Higher Education Department, my cabinet colleague, Dr. Zakiya Smith-Ellis, has obviously a big role to play in this. And it's a huge long-term challenge for New Jersey to be an exporter of talent, and particularly college-educated talent. Talent is the raw material of the 21st century economy. Companies are making their decisions on where they want to be based on where they can find the people that they need. If we are exporting talent, that is a big problem long-term. How do we fix that? There's a lot of things you need to do. And certainly, tax and fiscal policy is part of it. But I think a big part of New Jersey's opportunity ahead of it is how do we make the smart investments in our cities that are increasingly the places that young people want to be. 25 years ago, people were making decisions that were more kind of suburban oriented and getting out of cities. And certainly, if you look at obviously New York and Philadelphia, but even in Jersey City and Newark and Camden and all across the country, there's a significant wave of investment happening in American cities, in the urban areas, and that's increasingly where companies want to be. Large companies, small companies want to be in dense, walkable, mixed-use places. New Jersey has to be.
Go ahead.
New Jersey has to be in a position to compete in that.
Sorry for cutting you off like that, Tim. Make sure you come back and we'll continue the conversation. Tim Sullivan has been with us. He is, in fact, the Chief Executive Officer of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, otherwise known as the EDA. You've seen their website up throughout this entire segment. Check it out. Find out what's going on there. They're having a big impact. Tim, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Stay with us. This is State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We will be right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Resources, Valley National Bank, Summit Medical Group, NJ Best, the New Jersey Office of the Insurance Fraud Prosecutor, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and by International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825.